would you rather have in these finals? Would you go Curry or Kyrie?
Kyrie. All that terrible sports cliche stuff about he's a closer and all that stuff, that applies to Kyrie. And I understand on the one hand where it's like past is prologue, but you know what? Just because a guy has choked a few times or has underperformed in a big moment doesn't mean he'll continue doing that forever, and vice versa. Just because Kyrie came up big doesn't mean he'll continue doing that. I think it's a little bit different in the NBA than, say, in baseball, Molly, where a guy can have a bad World Series at the plate and he was just out of sync and, you know, it doesn't predict future performance. In the NBA, I think it does. I think that there's something in Kyrie that plays up to the big moment, because I've seen it now consistently toward the end of games in big moments. And whatever else you want to say about Steph, he had some good games in the finals and whatever else. Now we've seen in consecutive finals, once he was injured, once he wasn't, that, or something less than himself physically last year, I'll acknowledge that, but the year before he wasn't. That
well, the year before they won, so as long as they win,
a lesser version of himself. But they won, and
these questions,
it was LeBron without Kyrie or Kevin Love.
It's like the last two questions are happening in isolation, because you go from saying that all these advanced stats are why Jordan is better to saying that I just got a feeling about Kyrie. Like, how can you go from saying stats matter to now saying that stats don't matter? Like, I feel like Kyrie is clutch.
In fact, in the Jordan-LeBron debate, LeBron debate, you would also take that exact thing I'm identifying in Kyrie is Jordan. He owns that. He has that more than anyone who ever lived. And LeBron does not have it to the extent that Jordan has. But that's the subjective stuff, if you want to talk about that. I was trying to keep it objectively, throughout the course of a season, Steph is better than Kyrie. But also objectively, in terms of their performances in the finals, Kyrie has been better than Steph, Domonique. There's no way around it.
I mean,
Steph has now consistently been some lesser version of himself in the finals.
There's no arguing that Kyrie has been better than Steph in the finals, but I am not one that's going to accept the idea that somehow Steph is mentally frail, and just because the center of the court says finals this time, and it didn't say it before, that somehow he's going to be a bad player. He's averaging 31 points throughout the playoffs on 57% shooting. I want that guy. And it's not only his statistics that matter, it's his impact on the game. And Kyrie is a terrific player, but the way that he plays is with the ball in his hands. Steph can do that tremendously well, but when Steph doesn't have the ball in his hands, he draws the defense in a way that opens everything else up. Not only does he draw the defense when he's moving to get open for shots, but when he sets down screens or back picks and those sorts of things, guys double Steph and his team gets layups. So if I'm building a team, if I want to win, if I want someone who's going to impact my team offensively better than the other, I think it's Steph Curry, and they're both kind of defensive, I don't want to say liabilities, but they're not great on defense, so you can't go there for the advantage. But I think that the numbers and those big moments are swaying your opinion, when in actuality, the two-time MVP, one-time unanimous, Steph Curry, is a much better player that most reasonable people would rather have on their team in any time.
Well,
your only argument is that somehow he gets in the finals and gets scared, which I just think is absurd.
No, there's more of an argument than there's more. Normally, I agree with you. Under normal circumstances, I'd take Steph, because with Steph, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and with Kyrie, somehow it's less. Because their skill sets are similar. They can both shoot. Steph shoots better. They both have crazy handles. Kyrie has better handles.
Right.
Neither one is a really big point guard, and they both play off ball. But Kyrie especially, you mentioned Steph does more kind of unselfish things off ball, and I agree with that. And Steph tries harder, more consistently on defense than Kyrie. But when Kyrie wants to turn on the defense, he's capable of going to a higher level than Steph. And Kyrie doesn't have the stats that Steph or Westbrook or some of the other high-flying point guards do in terms of the numbers, or super fast point guards who can get to the paint and shoot and distribute, because he's playing with LeBron, and LeBron recognizes that the way to optimize the team is sometimes that Kyrie's off ball and LeBron is the primary ball handler, and that makes people not realize how good Kyrie is all the time. But the point is, generally, you're right. Steph Curry has a more consistent effort as a great player than Kyrie and affects his team's offense better than Kyrie on a more consistent basis. But Kyrie has a gear that he's shown he can go into on the defensive end and on the offensive end, by the way, that Steph doesn't quite match. And in those high leverage moments, Kyrie's able to go there, whereas Steph not only doesn't go there, but in fact goes in the opposite direction. Talked recently about how it still haunts him, the behind the back pass to Klay Thompson in a one-point game in the finals at home in Game 7. A careless pass. He somehow turns into a lesser version of himself in consecutive finals. And so doesn't mean he'll be these finals. But, you know, at a certain point, if someone starts to tell you who they are, you got to believe them. And until I see other evidence from Steph, why would I not take Kyrie
here's
in
some
the
evidence
finals?
for
I just saw this.
Here's some evidence for you. So in the last 2 years, in 37 minutes of clutch time, Steph Curry has 62 points. For LeBron and Kyrie combined, it's 92 minutes, and they have 64 combined. So he's good in the clutch. I think there are some big moments here and there that put blemishes on Curry's clutch moments, and they're also in the other direction for Kyrie. There's some big moments where we remember that shot from last year, and all of a sudden he's just a kind of world-beating clutch player. But in actuality, Steph hasn't been bad in the clutch. He had a bad finals last year, and we both accept that he was somewhat injured. The finals before that, they won. That's all that matters. He didn't dominate, but
no,
the
wait,
team
Dominique,
won.